Hi, Nick Biron from 360 Insights, and today I wanted to highlight an angle for the vendors. Going back to, geez, I think it was the first video I did, I talked about the changing buying process when you look at the difference between on-premises to today with more specifically cloud. And if you think about it, back then, the buying process was a lot more deliberate when it was on premises and with IT. And that was because it was a much larger investment. So if you think about it, there was software, there was infrastructure, there was people, there were utility cost, and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, organizations took a lot more time to understand the level of investment that they were making to ensure it was right for their organization. And once they made that investment, it was a permanent thing. It stuck around for a lot longer. When organizations made decisions, it was something that they were looking for a 5 or 10 year period of time in an investment that they're making. Cloud has dramatically changed that. And I wrote about this a long time ago on the 360 Insights website, where cloud has become more of a velocity sale, where there's a lot less time and attention done around the evaluation of solutions, and the speed in which customers and the sales process happens is much faster. But what ends up happening as well is the realized value is also evaluated differently as well, because now instead of it being a 5 or 10 year investment, unless someone signs a 3 year agreement, what they're doing is they're typically reevaluating the investments that they made at the end of the contract. And if they don't feel like they got their money's worth, the end result is that they're going to look for a better or maybe less expensive solution. How can we combat that from a vendor side? Because this has major ramifications from a revenue model. If I think back to it, again, I think every company is a little different, but there's been organizations that I've worked for and worked with that it could be upwards of 18 months of a customer having to be on a platform before their investment is basically neutralized. So whatever it took to bring them on as a customer, they don't actually make their money back until 18 months plus, which essentially means if any customers leave prior to that 18-month mark, it's at a loss. And if they only go, say, 19 months, well, the profit's really little. So the challenge is what you want to do is make sure that you're trying to make customers as happy as possible to stick around for the longest period of time, to make sure that that monthly reoccurring or annually reoccurring revenue is as high as possible, because that's the big difference between cloud and on-premise. On-premises, when you made that sale, it was one big giant lump sum, unless you were one of the bigger organizations that charged a support fee on top of that, such as Oracle and SAP. But at the end of the day, the money was made up front. Now with cloud, the money is made on the backside, where when the customers are staying on, and the longer that they stay on, the more profitable they become to an organization. This is why so many venture capital organizations and other markets really love cloud, because if you do it right, it can be an extreme way of profit for a business over time. However, what I've found is that in certain areas, so for example, HR, which is one of the core areas of 360 Insights, they haven't quite unlocked the secret to reoccurring revenue just yet. Some have, but a majority haven't. So I wanted to talk quickly about a few tactics that, as a vendor, you can put in place to ensure that you get the longevity out of the customers and get that reoccurring revenue. And it really comes down to attention to the customer. Kind of sounds crazy, but at the end of the day, the customer experience is everything. So a couple things that I really wanted to recommend. The first one is the sale and the customer interaction should not stop at the sale. Not to say that companies do this, but there is almost a sense of abandonment that some customers get when they sign that contract. They may get signed a account manager or a customer success person to help them with the implementation, but for the most part, what we find is that a lot of customers are left to their own devices to try to make sure that things work. And that is a failing model because at the end of the day, if they get integrated, but they don't really understand the nuances of the platform, how they can get the most out of it, at the end of the day, when it comes renewal time, they're going to start to question, well, is what my investment that I'm making on an annual basis or a monthly basis worth it? And they might look to another solution. So one of the things that I recommend is really to make sure that your account management, account success team is diligently spending time with them. And the way I recommend this is in a couple of steps. The first one is you want to make sure that they get set up in the fashion that they had bought in. So whatever they bought from your solution and whatever they were looking for, you want to make sure that that is solid up front so that they can get the realized value that they're hoping for almost immediately. But what we find is that when you look at a large majority of implementations, you have this much software, but they're only using 20, 30% of it. And one of the next things that you want to look at is helping them understand how to realize additional value of your solution. And when I was at HubSpot, we used to call this making the customer sticky. The more that they got invested into the solution, the less likely they were to churn out because it became integral and more part and invested into their solution. So by doing this, they did it really in kind of two ways. And this is the way, another thing I'm going to recommend is once you get them going with the core of what they bought for, you want to start to educate them. You want to educate them through the account management and account success team of additional ways that they can start to leverage the solution. You want to find other paths, whether it's through the marketing that your team might be doing to start to educate them on different ways that they can utilize the solution. Then at the same time, you want to start to look at maybe user groups and other types of trainings that you can do to continuously educate them about not just the features and benefit, features and functions of the solution, but what are the benefits? Why would they want to utilize certain aspects of your solution? And you want to be able to grow that over time. The more that you can grow their usage of your solution, the more valuable you are going to become to them as an organization. Come renewal time, they're going to realize that the value that you are providing to them exceeds what they're paying. Another thing that I would recommend is really monitoring the usage of your software. Again, going back to kind of a good example I have just because I work there, HubSpot used to monitor the usage of the solution, and they called that CHI, Customer Happiness Index. And what they found is that if they monitored usage of the various tools within a solution, they understood that if a customer went over a certain threshold of usage, they were more likely to renew than someone that wasn't. They were also able to start to identify customers that might be into a trouble zone because they constantly monitor it. So, for example, if I can't remember what the number was, but say that she needed to be 60 or above. Well, if a customer was way above 60, they knew that they were in a safe level. If they were, say, 40, they knew that they needed to put more effort in certain aspects of the solution to get them above that threshold. But also, if they started to see if someone was hovering at 60 or 70 or 80, but then all of a sudden they're starting to tick down, they started to realize that those were customers that they needed to put some attention towards. So this active monitoring, and again, they weren't monitoring exactly how they're using it, kind of like a Big Brother, but what they were doing is just kind of being able to understand which tools were being activated and utilized. How often were they, was an organization logging into an account? And they were able to anonymize this data so that they weren't giving up personal, sensitive information to the account management team, but able to understand that what they call, again, customer happiness index, because at the end of the day, they realized if you were to able to proactively measure this and then take actions against that, you can prevent a customer from potentially churning out in the long run. Because again, if you really want to think about it, and I'll probably repeat this a few other times in the video, is that when it comes to cloud, the longer a customer is on board, the more profitable they will be as a customer. And at the end of the day, again, if it's 18 months that your payback period is, you need them to be on board at least for 18 months. The last thing that I'll share is changing behavior of a sales team. And this was something that I've seen multiple organizations struggle with, where uh, again, cloud is a velocity sale, and at times I've seen sales teams almost be people that will pick up people by the ankles, shake them, and see what actually falls out of the pockets, and then basically move on. Sometimes that's great because you can close a lot of business, but then what you find is that if you're just doing that, you'll find that customers will churn out just as fast as they're coming in. And I've actually seen this happen at quite a few organizations where they were doing really good at account acquisition, but they were finding that the sales team weren't really onboarding the right type of customers or onboarding them the proper way. And then as a result, they would churn out just as fast. And that was bad for the organization, it was bad for customers, and so on and so forth. So what I would recommend is really looking hard at the sales team and really trying to understand how you can change their behavior. A couple ways that you can do that is by actually making their bonus and the way that you track them attached to the longevity of customers. So I've actually worked at organizations in the past, and I'll use HubSpot as an example, where if a customer churned out anytime after the sale within 6 months, the sales team would actually get 100% of their commission pulled. What this meant is that if I sold a customer and I got full commission and they churned out 4 months later, I would lose that commission. They would actually take it back from me. And that was very deliberate because what they wanted to do is change the sales team's behavior to make sure that they were bringing on the absolute best of accounts. And then we weren't just taking anyone's money. The other thing that I would recommend, and what actually, again, HubSpot did, is they would also tie that churn to bonus and actual promotion steps. Because if you were a really good sales rep, but you had people churning out just as fast, that affected your bonus and it affected your ability to grow within the organization. So by changing those three things, commission, bonus, and the ability to actually move up with the organization and tie that directly towards the longevity of the accounts, it effectively changed the behavior of a sales team. And I use HubSpot as kind of a lot of examples, not only because I was there, but what I've found is that throughout my career, I've worked with a lot of cloud organizations. They are one of the few that have truly understood the impacts that cloud has on their revenue. And it's the reason why they're one of the companies they are today. But they've also understood what it has in having the right aspects of tracking and working with customers, impacting on the customer success within their platform. But then also, again, with the sales team, they really truly understood how to tie it directly to the sales team to actually get the outcomes that they were looking for. Not just any customer, because if they churned out any earlier than that 18-month period, they actually lost money. And they really wanted to have those longevity of the accounts. And then they also tied in other metrics to account management and customer success and things like that. It was really in their heritage to make sure that they were doing the best that they could to make happy customers. So bring on the best customers, make them happy, and incentivize the team the right way to ensure that that all fell in line. So again, just kind of a little bit of a longer video than I traditionally do, but very, very important for the vendors. If you really want to make sure that you're successful in cloud, you really need to be thinking about customer experience and how do you really impact good behaviors within the team. That's the best way, and that's the way that you're going to get path to success with the cloud. Because otherwise, you're going to continue to struggle to keep your cloud and annual numbers up, and that could be a real problem when looking for further investment or looking to make other changes within the organization. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this and watch this video, and hope you got the most out of it, and good luck.